Reset here. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn turned webinar for Colorado Assisted Living Association. We're glad that you could join us here today and talk about some online marketing for your assisted living communities. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I kind of had you message me through the question Q&A box or the chat box, either way. So if you have any questions at all during the training today, I want you to just put a message in there and send that over to us, and we will answer your questions. I promise we will answer any and all questions. The only dumb questions are the questions you don't ask. And we're happy to try to tackle any questions that might come up for you. Let's see. Trying to think, is there something else? Oh, yes. One other thing. I sent a link in the chat box, as well as if you go to the section where it says handouts. Basically, there is a download of this presentation. So if you had a printer close by and you wanted to print it out and make notes and follow along, you could download it from the handouts or from the link in the chat box that I sent over that is of the presentation. So with that, are there any questions from the very beginning that you're burning questions that you have that you want to make sure that we talk about today? If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and add those now. We can start queuing those up and work on answering those as we go throughout the day. So the first thing that I'd like to address here today is answering the question of how do we measure success online? What are going to be the key things that we're looking for, and what are the factors that really matter in measuring success? So there's some things that come up typically when we're talking about digital marketing, and depending on what you know and what you follow, obviously with social media, there's a lot of things about, oh, I have this many followers on my Facebook page and this many likes and this many comments and this many shares. And while that information is important, that in and of itself is not a measure of success. Website traffic, which is good information and probably useful information, does not necessarily accomplish our goal. If it's the wrong traffic, it doesn't necessarily help us. And even if you are capturing emails, which you should be, if you're capturing emails and that's it, nothing else happens, that's not necessarily a measure of success. It might be a measure of the process, it might be a measure of what you're working on, but not necessarily a measure of success. Your goal is always going to be a qualified prospect, somebody that is interested in your communities, someone that is, and usually it's, and we'll talk about this when we talk about audience, someone's calling for their, for a community for their mother, and they're calling you and they have the money to pay, and you know, all the other conditions are right to have somebody that is going to move in soon. So that is your goal in terms of all this marketing and everything we're going to talk about today. And that's the most important question. How do we get someone to fill out a form or pick up the phone who is a qualified prospect for our communities? That is the ultimate goal of measuring success. And one of the factors you have to do that, obviously, is to show that you are a trustworthy community, that you're competent, you're honest, and you're reliable. And keeping that in mind, that becomes a foundation of everything else that you do online. So whether that's your social media, whether that's your website. How do you demonstrate? How do you communicate that you are competent, honest, and reliable? That's core and foundational to your online marketing strategy and your online marketing success. So the first category then we want to talk about is knowing your audience. And I kind of hinted to that already. It's kind of hard not to do that. So who are they? Who is your real audience that you're looking for? And what are their pain points and what are their struggles right now? So when you're talking about the children of the resident that's going to be moving into your community, that's really your target market. That's really who you're trying to speak to in the current situation. So how do you address what their struggles are? So when you think about what that's like for them, in many cases, they're kind of in between. They've got children entering college while they've got a parent who's aging and needs care. And so they're pinched between that. So they have a lot of stresses from a lot of different categories. A lot of them are busy professionals and have busy careers that they're trying to address. So what are the struggles and difficulties around managing that and now trying to care for their mother or father who needs more care than they can provide? And how do you address other factors? There's probably some guilt that they have because they're not in a situation maybe where they can provide the care for their mother, and maybe that's what they really want to do, but it's just not possible. And so there's some guilt possibly around that. Maybe they have tried to care for the mother and they just can't do it anymore. Maybe there's other issues. Maybe there's some physical concerns of their own where they can't physically do it. Maybe, family is not being supportive of what they're trying to do. Or maybe this is a family struggle of trying to figure out, how do I move somebody? I want to move mom into assisted living, but my brother or my sister, they don't want that, but yet they're not willing to take care of her. So these are all the struggles and the conversations that are happening in your prospect's mind. So how can you know and understand that better, and how can you address that? So in your marketing messages, in everything that you do, whether that's your website, whether that's a brochure that you're handing to somebody, how can you address these real concerns and provide some type of assurance that says, I understand what you're going through. So we help people like you through this process. We know it's difficult. We know that there might be some guilt related to this. We know that, there might be some family struggle related to this. And that's okay. This is what we do. We help families go through this process so that mom can get the absolute best care possible. So that has to be part of the conversation and part of the thought process that you go through, so that you're trying to communicate those things to your prospects through all these mediums. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know what you think of that. Am I on target with that? Am I totally off base? You can throw it in the comments or throw it in the question box. But I'd love to get your feedback a little bit on those things that I just threw out there, and get your thoughts. Is that on track? Does that track with you? On that, you can do that now. It's totally fine. Go for it. It's hard to make a webinar a little bit interactive, right? It's a little bit of a struggle, but would love to hear any of your thoughts or ideas on that. Let's see. Oh, a lot of people are using their web browser. That's awesome. Let's see. Jamie, Janice, John, Kristen, Marianne, Michelle, Tom, Tracy. Anybody? Thoughts? We on target? We on track? Yep, I'm calling people out. All right. So I guess we're good. All right, let's talk a little bit about your website and what we need to do with your website in particular. So again, going back to our goal, what's the goal of our websites? Same goal we talked about. How are we able to get a qualified prospect, someone that's ready and able to become a resident in one of our communities? One of the things that I want to talk about with this is a little different way to look at this, and that is think about how people are actually searching today. So a lot of search that's happening today is happening by someone either typing full questions or actually saying full questions. So they'll pull up their phone and they'll hit the microphone, or they'll say, "Hey Siri," or "Hello Google," or "Okay Google," and they'll ask a full question. What's the nearest assisted living facility? Oh, see, Google's like already picking it up on my phone. Or what's the best assisted living facility near me? Questions like that, those full questions, are what people are searching more and more often today than in the past. Where in the past they might have just searched a couple of keywords, which they still do. It's still used very largely because we've kind of been programmed that way to do keyword searches. But more and more people are asking full questions. So you want to think, how can we answer these full questions and have a page on our website that addresses the entire question that people have? So that's really a key piece of improving your website's search ranking is by answering questions that way. The other thing you want to remember that we have here is the rule of 3 clicks. The rule of 3 clicks means that to get to anything really important on your site, it shouldn't take me more than 3 clicks to get there. So if I'm on the home page and I want to get to what I want to get to, 1 click is best. 2 clicks is okay. It's not the best, but 1 click is best if I can get there in 1 click. 2 clicks is fine, and 3 clicks is the absolute max. If I have to find what I need to get to, and it's deeper than 3 clicks, then I'm probably not going to go find it. That's probably too much work for someone to do to get to what they're looking for. So that's an important rule to remember. So can you get to any of the most important things on your website at the maximum of 3 clicks? 1 or 2 clicks to the most important stuff is much, much better. What should you have on your website in terms of content? So the most basic set of content, your basic about page, your services page, your locations page. So you can have one page that has all your locations, but every single location that you have, if you have multiple locations, should have its own page on your website as well. The other place that almost every site I see really misses is what we call FAQs and SAQs. FAQs are frequently asked questions. So what are the most common questions you get from your prospects when they're looking to move their mom into your communities? If you can have those questions already on the website, they can answer most of those questions by the time they're actually calling you on the phone and talking to you, then they're a much better qualified prospect. There are some studies out there that even say adding pricing information on the website so people can check your pricing first, because I'm guessing from what I've seen, it's not really a guess, but from what I've seen, the first questions that come up are, how much is it? Do you, do you take Medicaid? Do you take these other things? Do you, what's your availability? When can I schedule a tour? So these are very basic questions that are kind of the most frequently asked questions that people have, that you can add to your website to address those ahead of time. So by the time they get to you, they are already pre-qualified. They already have a lot of great information about your community, and they're ready to take the next step a lot faster. The other category of that is the SAQs. These are should ask questions. So what are the questions people should ask when they're looking for an assisted living community? So you, being the expert that you are in your community and in the process and in what's really good about your community and unique about your community, then this is a way to emphasize that. So for instance, if you have a particularly robust activities program, or perhaps you, your menu or your dietitian or your cook, whatever that might be, has some unique spin, or a really high quality spin on the food in your community. Maybe there's something unique about your particular community. If you're a small home, you're a residential home, you live as a family. And maybe you emphasize that as the aspect of your community. If it's a larger facility, maybe you have some pretty unique things in your facility that you do for your residents that maybe a lot of other places don't do. And so you can incorporate those into your should ask questions of being able to say, hey, you should ask a new community, do they have this or do they have that? And use that to help identify what's unique and what's special about your particular community. The other thing to have on the website is what I call real estate style pictures and videos. So a lot of what this process is of finding an assisted living community is a lot like finding an apartment. And having those really high quality pictures of your community that people can look at and see, where they can see what a bedroom looks like, they can see what the dining area looks like, they can see the outside of the community. That's really an important piece of this, and it's almost the number one thing that people look at when we're looking at traffic and on websites, and where do people spend the most time. This is really high on that list of what people are looking at. So having really good quality pictures, and if possible to have some really good quality video or some type of virtual tour that's on the site where people can interact and navigate it that way, is a really good option to have, and really, from my perspective, is kind of a mandatory thing. That's kind of a must-have. Now, if you're going to do some additional content on your site because you want to keep your site fresh and you want to have additional content that you can send out to resident families and to prospective families as well, that's to make a blog and have a blog. My recommendation is not to write a blog per se, but to make a video. And that's, a 4 or 5 minute video on just about anything you can imagine related to your community. So maybe, it's the executive director that makes a 5 minute video. maybe the executive director does a quick video interview with some of the staff to ask them, why do you work at a senior care community? Why are you part of this team? And capturing some of that insider look and having your staff be a part of that content. Maybe it's doing a quick interview with some of the people that you work with in your community. You have a lot of outside services that you bring in. Do a video with a physical therapist. Do a video, quick short video with hospice, one of your hospice providers. There's a lot of different ways you can provide additional content. And you can do the same thing on the blog with the videos as your FAQs and your SAQs. So what are your frequently asked questions and should ask questions? These are all 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 minute videos that you can make. You can make them with your cell phone and post those on your blog. So how do you do that? Well, you upload it to YouTube, and then you're able to take the video from YouTube and embed that on your blog. Now, if you really want to go far with this, what you do is transcribe it. So once this webinar is over, we're making a recording of it. I'm going to get this transcribed, and all the text from this webinar will be available. The advantage of that for you is that a 5-minute video on a website called rev.com, rev.com. You can upload that video file there, and it will transcribe it for $1 a minute. It usually takes about an hour or so to get that back. So now you can post a video on your blog with a transcription of that, and you can do that once a month and send that out in your monthly newsletter. So it's a super easy way to create content that's relevant, that's useful, that people will engage with, and you can keep fresh content then on your website. One thing I forgot to mention back up here was reviews. What are you doing to get more reviews online about your community? And we're going to talk more about this, but having the reviews actually posted on your website is really important. So if you've got reviews on Google or reviews in other places, you want to take and pull those reviews over and put them on your website so people are also able to see and read those there. Now, if you want to get advanced and a little bit nerdy with the contact forms on your website and with phone call tracking, so if you're doing any kind of paid advertising anywhere, I would use call tracking phone numbers that, if you post an ad or pay for an ad somewhere in one of the local publications, the senior care publications out there, get a tracking phone number. And there's a number of different places to get those. And if you have questions about that, we can help you out with that. But if you have a call tracking phone number and you put that online, in online ads or in a print ad, then the calls that come from that, you're able to track specifically and be able to see the effectiveness of any of those mediums. And with your website, you're able to update your Google Analytics with some goals for your contact forms and for the call tracking. And so as people fill out forms on your website or make phone calls to you with your call tracking phone numbers, you're actually able to track that information inside of Google Analytics as well, so you can get a better idea of what's actually working in your marketing out there and be able to track that. So those are a handful of specific things. I'm wondering if you guys have any questions specific to your website. So are there things that you've heard that you should do with your website that maybe you haven't done, or maybe you feel like you should, or some expert told you at some point you were supposed to do something and you're not sure if you should do it or not do it. Any thoughts on that? Throw those questions over and we will address those. So we talked about the blog a little bit and the video and the transcription. And the real reason for that is what we call conversational SEO. So when you make a video and you transcribe it, the way it's worded is different than if I were to type up that same information. So Google really likes more conversational type of a message that you would put on your website. So that's why it's really good to transcribe it. Google's goal is to be able to Google's goal is to provide the best possible content for its users. And when it sees content that is very conversational, it puts a measure on that that's that's more better than other types of content, just written content. It actually values that conversational tone better because it knows that whoever is doing that is really trying to communicate clearly and effectively with their audience. So that's the big main reason why we do video, and we recommend you do video and get it transcribed and post that transcription as part of the blog. All right, let's talk a little bit about email. Again, if you have any questions about any of that we've already talked about, pop those in, and happy to discuss. If you've got any other opinions, thoughts, ideas, we would love to hear them. Let me go back here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some email marketing, basics of email. So one of the recommendations I have, and we try to get this set up for all our clients, is that you use, your main website domain or a domain type email, a business email. So I see a lot of people still using like a Gmail account or a Comcast account or AOL account for marketing their communities, and even putting that on their business cards. So it's super easy to get the email set up. If you need help with that, let us know. We're happy to help you out with getting your email account set up on your domain. It's just way more professional for you to do that. Let's see, we got a great question here. Doing a video with residents, employees, service providers, do you have to sign a legal document release signed by all parties before posting? So there's a couple ways that you can do this. One, obviously, is that you can just ask for permission when you're doing it. A lot of our communities that we work with, they have, at the point that they're having residents move in, they ask them to either sign a release that says it's okay for video and pictures, and everybody has that choice. It's either yes or no. Yes, it's fine. We release you to be able to use video or images, and then if they say no, then they don't do it. They don't take pictures. They don't take video of those that have opted out of that. So that's how it's typically handled on the resident side. For anybody else, for your employees, that's something that you can have as a part of your onboarding process. That we do videos, or we make videos, we take pictures, and we use that in our marketing. So you can have them agree to that as part of their hiring process. So that could just systemize those two things. For anybody else, for your marketing partners, or for outside vendors and that kind of stuff, I think as long as you have the conversation that we're making this video, and we want you to mention who you are, and you can talk about your company. So you're kind of giving them another opportunity for marketing. So I think there's some express consent, if you will, given in doing that. So I don't know that you would need to get anything signed or go that far in that. So that would be my thought on that, Joanna. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if that's let me know if you need more clarification on that. All right, so once you got your main domain email, you should be using some type of email marketing system. So not just sending emails from Gmail or something like that. Use something to send out your newsletter, your content, your blog post, whatever that is, and make sure that you are using something like MailChimp or some other email service provider like that you can send those group mass emails from, and that way people, if they're happy with your emails, that's great. But then if they want to choose to opt out, then they can choose to opt out. And that's a real big key, is that you're able to give people the option to opt out if that's what they want to do. And so using a service like MailChimp is a great way to do that. Your subject line is the most important. Try to be creative there for that to help improve your open rates and get more people to open your emails. And again, anytime you've got events going on, if you have a newsletter and your blog post, I would say minimum to nurture your list is once a month. You could probably get away with a couple times a month. So if you did one newsletter and then one special events email every month, that's not too much. If you're a bigger, larger, busier community, you can probably email even more often. But I would say minimum one time per month, just to keep that list fresh. And who do you send this to? This goes to your resident families. This goes to all your referral partners. This goes to all your outside vendors. You get everybody that you possibly can on that list, so that you're communicating with them on a regular basis. You can throw in your discharge planners, anybody and everybody that's a possible referral source for you as well. I'm going to take a drink here. I've been talking a lot. Okay. Again, let me know if you have questions about that or anything else that we've covered so far. All right, let's talk a little social media. Couple things. What I think you should do really is focus on a single platform and get really, really good at it. The number one platform for that, in my estimation, is still Facebook, in spite of all the recent hubbub and excitement around it. We'll see how those things play out, but Facebook's still going to be your best marketing channel on social media today. One of the most common questions I get are, one, what do I post? And two, how often should I post? So if you have a Facebook page, one of the things you have to remember is that just because you post something on that page doesn't mean everybody that's following your page is going to see that. So you typically have to figure out, okay, how do I spend, $50, $100, or $200 a month, some amount of money, to boost these posts, to get the post out there so that people actually do see that. So it's totally fine to post even 2 to 3 times a day, but once a day for sure. And you can post a lot of different content. Obviously, you can take pictures, you can do video, you can do live video, any of your events that you have going on. We do a lot of posting of the daily activities. So every day, the followers of the page, the families, can see what mom and grandma are up to today. And they like to see, the families like to see that. Plus, you're using it to build your presence in your local community. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that with a Facebook page to create those connections. So it becomes a great way to communicate with your families and for outreach. Now, the other platform that I do recommend is LinkedIn. So having a good LinkedIn company page, I think, is key to help you in terms of your recruitment for your staff and your team. So having a good presence on LinkedIn really is not about getting residents. It's about how do you staff your community and keep it staffed. I'm sure there's questions about social media. So I would say you got to pop in and ask me those questions. I'll give you a second to ponder. Anybody have any problems, challenges right now using social media for it? All right. Let me know on that. So let's talk about reviews. I said I was going to talk about this. Really important piece. Do you know what your reputation is on the key sites? So sites like Google, of course, and Facebook, and sites like caring.com and senioradvisor.com and ourparents.com. What do the reviews look like on these sites? Have you checked them recently? Do you check them on a regular basis? Because people who are searching and looking, this is one of the key factors that they're using to make decisions on who they even contact. And if you don't have good reviews, even if you do have maybe some negative reviews, but you have a lot of other good reviews and your good reviews are recent, then they're going to look at that first and make the decision on who they're going to call quite frequently based on what they're seeing in the online reviews. So a couple stats. So this comes from caring.com, which caring.com is one of the biggest senior care sites that takes reviews and manages reviews. And these are a couple key stats that they share. They say significant reviews. So if you have a lot of reviews, that you get 14 times more inquiries versus those communities that do not have significant reviews. So this is one of the quickest, easiest opportunities that I see with any community to really start to set themselves apart from other communities, because most senior care assisted living communities have not taken the time to even try to get reviews. Most of the reviews are very few and far between. So this is something that you can really jump in there and really start to focus on building out your review profile, and you're going to see really positive results really quickly from that. And it really doesn't cost you anything to do this. It costs some time and effort in asking for the reviews and reminding your resident families to leave you a review. So caring.com also says that a review is worth $54,000 per year per review. So if someone said, hey, for every good review that you get online, you're going to get $54,000 for that for this year, that's some pretty good motivation to get out there and to start building out your reviews. Really significant part. And then kind of the final area that we want to talk about. So we're into this about 45 minutes. This thing is all about content that is geared to help you. So there's no sales pitch or anything like that. It's just content to help you. So let's talk a little Google My Business. So this is your Google Maps page. And just want to give you some tips around this and how to get the most out of that Google listing. So first of all, if you haven't done this already, you should set up a Gmail account for all your Google related services. So this is your Google Maps, your Google Analytics, if you're using Google AdWords, and there's a number of different Google products out there. So have kind of a generic Gmail account that you use for your company and for your business to tie all this stuff, all of the Google properties together. You want to make sure that you claim the page for each listing, or each location. If you didn't create the Google Maps page, it might have been created either by somebody else, or Google may have created it based on information and data that they happen to pull together and find online. But for you to update that and to make changes to it, you have to claim that. And usually what that involves is you saying, this is my business, and it'll generate a phone call to your business line. You answer that, it gives you a code, you enter the code online, and that verifies your page. Once you do that, you can then update all the information. You can make sure your business is listed in the right category, that your hours are correct, which should be the same for everybody, 24/7. Any of your special services that you offer. The images are super important. Adding a nice looking logo, adding nice looking pictures for people to look at. This is the first thing when people are searching. They often see this long before they see your website. And so having the right pictures on there of your community are going to be really important to do that. The other thing that you can now do is you can actually post links to your website on the Google Maps page. There's a place for posting. And this is additional content that's going to pop up in search results by you doing that. So having your Google Maps page set up, having all the details and information there, making sure that you've got images and the contact information is correct on there is really, really important. And that's going to help you get found and get more qualified prospects going forward. There's other local sites as well. Bing Local, Yahoo Local are two of the main local directory sites. And then there's hundreds of others that you could be on too. In particular, like caring.com and so forth, that you want to make sure that you have set up for your community as well. All right, so that's kind of the most broad online marketing blueprint for senior care communities that I wanted to give you today. And we'll take a few minutes here and see if there's any additional questions that you guys might have that